John Miller sat by the window of his small home in rural Kentucky, sipping his chamomile tea. At 87 years old, he had lived a life full of rich experiences, raising 3 children with his late wife, serving in the Navy, working as a high school history teacher, and volunteering at the local library. Now retired and living alone, John spent most of his days in reflection, reading old books, watching the birds in his garden, and exchanging stories with his neighbors from time to time. His daughter, Emily, visited him every other weekend. She worked full-time as a nurse in Louisville and did her best to balance work and caring for her father. Over the past few months, she noticed something different about John. He had always been sharp and lively, even with age, but now he seemed more tired, less interested in his books, and unusually quiet during their conversations. Emily chalked it up to the weather or maybe boredom. But deep down, she felt something was changing. One Saturday afternoon, Emily arrived to find her father sitting in his recliner with the curtains drawn, something he rarely did during the day. His skin looked paler, his eyes seemed distant, and he struggled to get up to greet her. She helped him into the kitchen where they shared a light lunch. John barely touched his food, something that was once his favorite, grilled cheese with tomato soup. He smiled gently and told her, "I'm just not very hungry these days, sweetheart." As a nurse, Emily's instincts kicked in. She began to notice small, subtle signs. John had lost weight, his voice was weaker, and he no longer seemed interested in their usual Sunday puzzles. One morning, when she arrived early, she found him asleep on the couch wearing clothes from the previous day. She called his name several times before he stirred, his response slow and slurred. He laughed it off, but Emily couldn't ignore the truth any longer. John's decline wasn't sudden. It was slow, almost silent, like autumn leaves falling one by one. The changes were not always obvious to those who didn't know him well, but for Emily, who had seen him at his most vibrant, the signs were becoming clearer. He began sleeping more, napping several times a day, and waking seemed to take longer each time. His once vibrant conversations dwindled to short, soft-spoken sentences. The sparkle in his eyes was fading. He also started withdrawing socially. The friendly neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, came by to invite him for their weekly chess match, but John declined, saying he just didn't feel up for it. When his granddaughter Sarah visited with her usual excitement and stories from college, he smiled warmly but didn't respond much. He held her hand a little longer than usual, though, as if to hold on to the moment. Then came the day when Emily found a pile of unopened mail by the front door. John had always been meticulous with his bills and letters. His favorite armchair had food crumbs scattered around it, and dishes were piling up in the sink. Emily knew this wasn't her father. It was someone struggling to manage the basic routines of life. She sat down beside him and gently asked if he felt all right. "I feel tired, honey." "All the time," he whispered. "It's like my body's slowing down before I'm ready." Emily's heart ached, but she nodded, trying not to cry. She arranged for a visiting doctor, Dr. Andrew Keller, who had been a long-time family friend. After examining John and reviewing his recent lab results, Dr. Keller gently confirmed what Emily feared. John was approaching the final stage of his life. The body, though it doesn't often send alarms, gives out quiet warnings. Decreased appetite, fatigue, confusion, withdrawal, and irregular breathing patterns. John was showing many of them. Though difficult, Dr. Keller explained to both John and Emily that this wasn't a failure, but a natural process. The body, like a well-used clock, begins to wind down when it's lived a full life. They spoke for a long time about palliative care, comfort measures, and how to make these final months meaningful. John was surprisingly at peace. "I've lived a good life, Emily," he said one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set behind the trees. "I got to love your mother, raise you kids, and see my grandkids grow up. I don't fear what's coming. I just hope it's gentle." Over the next few weeks, Emily spent more time at her father's house. She helped organize his medications, cooked soft meals, and hired a part-time caregiver named Linda to assist with bathing and mobility. John's physical strength waned further. He had trouble sitting up without help and began speaking less, but his mind remained aware. When family visited, he would smile and squeeze their hands. Words were no longer needed. Presence was enough. One night, as Emily read aloud from her father's favorite novel, The Old Man and the Sea, she noticed his breathing had become slower, almost rhythmic. He opened his eyes briefly, looked at her, and said, "Thank you, sweetheart, for everything." She kissed his forehead and stayed by his side until morning. That next morning, John didn't wake up. He had passed peacefully in his sleep, just as he had hoped. The room was quiet, filled only with the soft morning light filtering through the curtains. Emily cried, but it was not with regret. It was with love and gratitude for the moments they had shared and the gift of knowing when to let go. At the memorial, people spoke about how John had touched their lives with his wisdom, humor, and kindness. Emily shared a few words about her father's final months, not to bring sadness, but to highlight the importance of recognizing the signs and being present. "My father didn't fear death," she said. "He welcomed it as the final chapter of a life well lived. But it helped knowing what to expect, knowing how to comfort him, and when to simply be still and hold his hand." In the months that followed, Emily wrote a small booklet based on her experience, helping other families understand the subtle signs that the end of life may be near. It became a guide for those dealing with aging parents or loved ones, offering gentle support and real examples from John's final days. She called it The Silent Warnings, a daughter's story of letting go, and dedicated it to her father's memory. Years later, Emily continued her nursing work with a new perspective. Every elderly patient reminded her a little of John, and she made it her mission to ensure no one had to go through their final chapter alone or unnoticed. Life, she realized, doesn't end with noise and drama. It often fades quietly, with dignity and grace. And in those final days, love, compassion, and understanding mean more than anything else.